Listen, we know we've been hitting you with story after story about loot boxes over the last few months, but trust me, this one is pretty big.
Lawmakers in the US state of Hawaii have drawn up 4 separate bills specifically targeting loot boxes in video games. According to the Hawaii Tribune Herald, the bills, introduced last month, target exploitative monetization techniques in video games. If the first pair of bills get passed into law, House Bill 2686 and Senate Bill 3024, it would mean the sale of any game featuring a system allowing players to buy randomized rewards using real money would be banned for anyone younger than 21 years old. The second pair, House Bill 2727 and Senate Bill 3025, would require video game publishers to prominently label games that have paid loot boxes or randomized rewards and disclose the odds of receiving each reward. According to the bills, that label would read, "Warning, contains in-game purchases and gambling-like mechanisms which may be harmful or addictive."
Hawaii State Representative Chris Lee, who you'll remember as the guy that called Battlefront 2 a Star Wars-themed casino for kids, is the one spearheading the bills. He said, quote, "I grew up playing games my whole life. I've watched firsthand the evolution of the industry from one that seeks to create new things to one that's begun to exploit people, especially children, to maximize profit." Chris Lee says he's been working with legislators from other states and countries to create a widespread response to predatory payment mechanisms. And here's the big one. Lee says that now more than half of all US states are pursuing some form of loot box legislation. Quote, "If enough of the market reacts, the industry would have to respond and change its practices. It's bigger than Hollywood. It's an industry that can reach into everyone's pockets and phones and consoles and PCs, but there's no authority to force them to disclose their practices."
Just to be clear, these laws have so far been drawn up and proposed. They've not yet been passed into law. They still need to be voted on by the state government, but the fact remains that a US lawmaker is trying to get a loot box legislation passed in a US state, and he says that half of the country's states are looking at doing something similar. And remember, it was only in October and November of last year, just a few months ago, when the whole conversation about loot boxes really exploded into life as multiple AAA games released carrying some form of loot box system.
It really is quite breathtaking how quickly this has turned around from a bunch of people on YouTube going, "This is a problem, there should be laws about this, this is not a good state of affairs," to a guy with actual weight pushing for this to be passed into law in a US state, and he says that more than half of US states are looking at similar things. It really is quite amazing how quickly this has become a reality.
Considering a lot of states are bigger than some of the European countries, 26 states is like almost the equivalent of like what most of Europe. And that size, that amount of sales being warned or forewarned that games could involve gambling mechanisms is huge. Not to put a down on it straight away, but I've noticed that Sea of Thieves has just announced that they're going to be later on introducing loot boxes into games, and Battlefront are taking them out and putting them back in. So is it the gaming industry's way of getting around this already? They're already making plans to release a game without loot boxes so they don't have to put in, all the warnings and things like that. And then later down the line, if they introduce them. What I'm trying to say is, if you're going to put loot boxes in your game in 6 months' time, will this affect you as a game
They're already looking for loopholes, so they're already looking for a way around whatever the wording of the laws might be. Well, they've drafted 4 bills, and that feels like they're trying to cover a lot of ground, because if there's 4 separate pieces of documentation and writing, and obviously maybe there's more chance that maybe one of them could get passed, or a pair of them could get passed, or however it works. This is big news. I think this is very big news, very significant for anyone who's been following this loot box thing, and bloody God bless you for sticking with us this long, but for anyone who's been following this is probably one of the biggest milestones we've seen, really.
It's a lot easier to get laws and legislations passed statewide when one of them's done it already, because then you've got some proof, you've got reference, you can do all that. So all it needs really is one breakthrough state, which looks like it could be Hawaii, to do it, and then it'll probably make its way through at least a good 20 more states, I reckon. So yeah, it looks like progress is getting made, and probably by summertime we're going to see this rolled out. That's what I'm predicting anyway. Industry inside. I'll put that on my Twitter straight away.
There you go, a very significant update in the whole loot box story. What do you think about this? Let us know down in the comments. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this every single day. There's another video right there which you can watch right now if you want, and a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel.